Welcome everyone to our 15th Lake Stewardship Workshop. I'm Jim Irwin, Chair of the Riding Mountain Biosphere Reserve. I'll be hosting tonight's workshop, and Dennis Hodgson and Daryl Kynes will be assisting. To begin, I would like to acknowledge that the Riding Mountain Biosphere Reserve is in Treaty 2 and 4 territories of the Anishinaabe people, and say that we respect and share their all-important teachings that water is a sacred gift essential for all life. Since 1986, Riding Mountain Biosphere Reserve has been bringing people together to share their knowledge for the well-being of our communities. In this respect, we're pleased to have Gary Medwechuk to share his stories of Dauphin Lake. Gary has lived on the shore of Dauphin Lake for over 25 years and is the past chair of the Crescent Cove Beach Cottage-Owners Association. Gary's presentation tonight is entitled Helping Keep Dauphin Lake a Viable Lake for Everyone, Including Fish, a Constructive Approach. Please go ahead, Gary.
Well, thank you very much there, Jim. I really appreciate you contacting me, and also Dennis and Daryl there. So I really appreciate all your help in trying to get things all put together. I'm just an interloper here today. I am, like I say, 25 years here out at Crescent Cove Beach. My past, I'm presently married to a lady from Toronto. And I was working with the Mental Health Administration through the Regional Health Authority here in the Parkland. Like I say, as Jim mentioned there earlier, I was the past chair and even secretary there for a while of the Crescent Cove Cottage-Owners Association. So we got the lakeside size and depth. It covers about 201 square miles. Lake Dauphin is about roughly 40 miles from north to south, and is about 5 or 6 miles east to west. I live in the very south portion, which is called Crescent Cove Beach, and it's kitty corner to Ochre Beach, and then of course Laguna Beach, and just in around the area where the Rainbow Beach Provincial Park is as well. When I came here way back and a number of years ago, I had purchased a pontoon boat, and I noticed it right away. It was an ideal lake for a pontoon boat because it's very, very shallow. And I took a lot of sonar depths of the whole lake area, and probably the deepest part of the lake is maybe about 3.7 meters. Average depth is about 2.4. So you're getting anywhere from about 5 feet to 18 feet. Of course, this affects the fish, or even the fishing in around the area. You could have fishing changing quite dramatically depending on what the water levels are. It affects the boating. If you got a pontoon boat, you can pretty well go just about anywhere with a draft. If you got something a little smaller, like a 16-foot boat or maybe a 14-foot, it's not an ideal lake, especially when it gets a little choppy out there. You can get swamped because of it being so shallow. And then we also have trouble with the boat launch areas as well, and they've had to be dug out over the years to be able to get out of the canal areas or even out of Crooked Creek areas. So that's been an ongoing concern. And as you see there's this watershed tributaries here. We got a number of them. There's about 7 main streams. The closest one to me is the Ochre River, mouth of the Ochre River to the right of me there, just off the cove. And we have a number of fishermen there just getting off the ice there today. Turtle River up to the northeast. Edwards Creek, of course, which is the drainage from up from the park area. Vermilion River and the Wilson River and the Valley River and Mink Creek. You can probably see in the pointer there that's moving around that area. So we got the Mossy at the very, very top there, which you can see is an outlet. We have a dam that's out there that drains all the water out of Dauphin Lake to keep the water levels at a decent rate. And we'll be talking more about that a little bit later on. It's a major concern that we all, the cottagers and the health of the lake is that dam. Okay, there's a shot of my place just from the winter side, and also the guest house to the right there. You can see a bunch of marsh that has grown up in that area. We had flooding back in 2011, the 300-year flood level. Previous to that was the 1978 level. I had built my garage and my guest house to the 100-year level, like higher than the 1978 level. That wasn't quite enough. I ended up having 6 inches of water in both the garage and my guest house, which caused some damage. So water levels generally go up and down depending on rain that goes into the tributaries. And of course, with that many tributaries flowing into Dauphin Lake, it doesn't take much to get the water levels to rise. But if you're going to have a dry year, the water levels are going to be extremely low. With the Mossy Dam being open 24/7, it's kind of difficult to really keep the water levels at a consistent level. And to keep, you're pretty well chasing it, I believe. July 2011, 23rd, to be exact, we had extremely high winds. It was like a high wind tsunami. It was like, I think it was mentioned by the Dauphin Herald. They reported it as winds of biblical proportion and like a spreading of the Red Sea or whatever, because they just kind of opened up. The one area, especially close to Dauphin Beach there near the golf course area, it kind of opened up the whole area and you could see sand for miles and miles, and water on one side and water on the other side and sand in the middle. And somebody had witnessed that, of course, because they had a cottage right before that. People at 6 o'clock in the morning golfing, and they were up to their knees in water, and cars had water right up to their steering wheel in a matter of 3 minutes. It didn't take long at all. It was a considerable amount of damage with that, with the high winds that did happen. And on even my guest house, it rocked the foundation. It actually virtually pulled a 12 by 20 guest house that I have right off the foundation that very day. Fortunately, I had insurance for that, so that was good. Okay, to the left there, you can see a really good picture of Crescent Cove. That home and garage and the guest house, that's my place that you see. And then to the right there are all the other cottage owners in and around the area. So a lot of places had to rebuild. We had help with water stewardship. I was one of the first to get my place done. A lot of people were very, very skeptical about the government even trying to help us. So people were just kind of sitting back, and it was a wait and see attitude for a lot of people. Myself, I just kind of dug in. I was very familiar with a governmental type of regime, working for the government for many, many years, for over 20 years. So I didn't hesitate at all. I wanted to get things done as quickly as possible. Old Town Harbor Development, you see a picture on the right, was Jim McGregor. He's a developer of Old Town Harbor here. He opened that up in 2010. He started work just across the way here from where I am. And he built 2 canals, and he built it all up to have around 100 cottages. It was a big endeavor for him. It was a lot of rain that year in 2010. And he had a lot of heavy equipment. You can see a picture right there. With that in mind, he was going into 2011. Of course, 2011, we had the flood starting in May, just before that. And he had to stop all work on the canal and on the area that he was building up for all the cottages. But he was very smart. He built it up very, very high. And it's going to be an attractive feature for people to buy properties on there, but it moved very, very slowly. It was moving very, very slowly, and a lot of cottage owners out there thought that it would never take off. But there is probably about about 3 or 4 houses that are up and going, and families that are living there. One of them is my doctor and her husband is living there on just like across from Valhop Drive there in the new area. So it's slowly starting to develop. It's going to be hopefully growing into be larger. There's water provided by one main source for all the cottage owners there on Old Town Harbor. Same with power as well. And they're planning maybe, in the future to have waterworks for a lagoon, to be sent up in there, maybe a hotel, possibly even a little corner store. So that may happen because it's really boosting the tax rate in around the area here, and it's going to maybe take off. And a lot of people are now considering on buying, and you can see that they bought a parcel of land. So that is changing slowly. But in the beginning, after the flood, everybody was very hesitant to even think about doing that. The flood of 2011, you can see an aerial flood damage. It was really quite considerable. There was the extent of the flood was really major. It just kind of enveloped both sides and the top and the bottom of the lake there. And we had water from where I am right to Highway 20. It was right up to the highway, which is about a mile, if not about a mile and a half from where I am. So the water had swollen along its banks considerably. Also, you can see there on the right-hand side, there was what we call ice. We had an ice tsunami back in May of 2012. And ice had, I was just sitting outside. I remember that very day having a meal around 5 o'clock or whatever. And all of a sudden it was like a freight train. And the winds just kind of came right up very, very quickly. And I was watching ice coming up between the cottages right across the way from people like Miles Haverlick, who's owner and operator of Dauphin Lake Pharmacy. I saw some of the other cottages, or all this ice was just moving right in between the cottages. And some of them were just broken right up immediately, just like tissue paper and toothpicks. It was just crazy. I know I've never seen anything like that in my life, but I was I was fortunate to watch this happening in front of me, this ice tsunami. It hit all the major papers, I think, and it hit national news. Even the weather channel, and of course different National Geographic. It hit big news because and of course with that you get some shoreline changes along with the home damage. So there was a lot of stuff that was just moved right off of the shore. You'd get rocks, you'd get debris, whatever else kind of stuff, and it would actually change the whole shoreline. So it was quite significant. And like I said, and you see in this picture the Old Town Harbor canals that are there. You can get just look at the pointer there. So that's the one canal that Jim McGregor built. It's about 14 feet deep all the way along, going up to the mouth to the east part of it. And then there's another join of another canal that goes to the south as well. So that's all connected, and it's about 14 feet deep all the way along, which is pretty major. I do know that my doctor's husband, he doesn't even take his hut, his ice hut down there, because there's the odd time there's some little bit of moving water and things like that. So, and you get the odd little pocket. So he just kind of moves it in a different direction. But we've had in the past aircraft that have float plane aircraft that have landed and kind of pulled up to the area using the canal and all that. So yeah, it was kind of a bit of a treat. I have a commercial pilot background there as a bush pilot. So I got a chance to talk to these guys, and it was kind of a great remembrance of the days that I used to have. We got the Mossy River Dam operation. It's operated and maintained. suitable for the Dauphin Lake, whose summertime level is what, 854.8 feet. The dam is, like I say, usually open full time. And we might have different changes throughout the year, but even this last winter, it was open all the time. Of course, you're losing about an inch a month when you're allowing that drain, especially in the wintertime. So it starts to go down, and it'll just stay down. And unless you've got a lot of spring runoff from the tributaries, it's going to stay at that level pretty well. Okay, then you're talking about the max, possibly could be about 856 and all that. Of course, we were way up there during the 2011 flood. And you got the evaporation rates that are there, especially during the summertime. And of course, like I say, the large rain events can change the water levels quite dramatically overnight. If we get an all-day rain, a heavy rain, with all those tributaries emptying into Lake Dauphin, it doesn't take long. You can just see the lake level starting to come up dramatically. And I always notice that I have a neighbor a couple of doors down from me, and he has Cabian wall on his front area of his cottage there. And you can see the water just reaching his Cabian. And of course, if the winds get up, you'll get it bashing up against the Cabians. Okay, you see a picture there to the right of a semi truck that's on the ice there. It's just in front of my place that we're setting up a fishing derby up on there. And we had it just about, when I was here in the beginning, it was just going on just about every single year, usually in March. And Mr. Stockatelli out of the bait shop out of the Dauphin co-op was running it, and with volunteers and all that. And so it was, there was people on the lake at 4 o'clock in the morning, all driving in, and it'd be all finished by 5 o'clock. Quite well run. And at the end of the day, you wouldn't even see a gum wrapper on the lake at all. So that was the good thing, because there's always this big danger of, well, there's going to be a lot of debris left and a lot of garbage left. But the air cadets were out in the ice there, and they cleaned everything off, and you would never known that there'd been a derby that day. So there'd be, I don't know, 1,000 guys out there fishing, sometimes more. And it was amazing. If you're getting some fish kills that are happening, and I do know that I got some information from last year about Waterhen. Waterhen had a big fish derby, and I had shared this with Jim Irwin there, and I had said that I talked to one of my buddies that had gone to that fish derby, and this was the first time I've ever heard of a fish derby not producing any fish whatsoever. And that kind of really caught me sideways, kind of blindsided me when I heard that. And of course, they had to change their whole focus on how they're going to divvy up the monies or prize money on that. So they just changed their whole parameters of how that was going to happen. And of course, a lot of fishermen were very disgusted in going to this fishing derby, but I think it's kind of a red flag to what could happen in the future to Dauphin Lake. At one point, we had a lot of overabundance of commercial fishing happening in Dauphin Lake. The fish stock started to deplete, and that was probably 20 odd years ago because of overfishing of commercial fishing, and that slowly started to come back. There was a fish survey that was done, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and also, of course, Mr. Stockatelli. They were out with a boat last August. I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. They were coming back because they were doing a bunch of catches on the lake and different areas of the lake. And they said it didn't matter where they stopped, where they put the nets down. It didn't matter where they were. They still were getting an abundant amount of fish coming out. And we're talking not small fish. We're talking large master angler walleye and master angler pike. And of course, a lot of other different types of fish. But at one point, I remember a gal at the church, she said to me, she said, you look on the internet and you can see that Dauphin Lake is indicated as number 2 in Canada, producing large pike and large pickerel. And I didn't know this information, and you might want to check it yourself, but there are some really, really big fish that are coming out of Dauphin Lake. I was able to talk to one of the game wardens here to come out here, one of the conservation officers that check licenses on that. They were thinking about changing the status of the licenses so that you can catch a bigger fish. And I said to myself, well, gee, that would be really great if we can at least take one master angler fish home, and it might start changing sort of the habitats of the different and the ecology of the fish that are caught in this lake. Because like I said, there's some really big spawners that are out there. It's not uncommon. I'd be fishing at the boat launch area on the Ochre Beach off of Beach Road, and it'd be nothing uncommon. Out of 4 fish, sometimes I would get 3 out of the 4 that are master angler. The rest might be a 17 and a quarter, a legal one. So some of the guys that I would be talking to fishing on the lake would say to me, we had to throw a lot of fish back today because they were all over the 17 and a quarter for the pickerel, which is a little frustrating on some kind. I remember the one guy, he's passed on there. I used to fish with him, was Mr. Adamowski there. And he always kept $200 in his back wallet. And I says, why do you do that when we're going to fish? He says, well, you know what? I'm keeping all the fish. And if I get penalized there, I got my fine money right here. So I thought it was kind of a little funny, but that's the way he had his attitude. I've grown up on this lake. I've been around this area, and I'm going to keep every fish that I can. There's different habitat changes. We can have poor to great. Rain events are a big thing, and you can get great catches some days, and then poor catches other days. This last couple of winters, especially this winter that we've had, they've been catching a lot of fish. But as soon as the weather started to turn a little bit milder, the fish just shut down completely, and that's just a normal thing that usually happens in the fish cycles. You can see we got a lot of waterfowl out here. Like, it's just a big area for attracting geese and ducks and kingfishers, and so we got seagulls out here. I mean, there's a lot of wild animals, and we've got anything from raccoons to coyotes to a bear. Bears will actually come in and around the area here. The one year I had a moose in the marsh area. There was a moose there. Frog population, it's one of the ecologies that's low on the spectrum, low end, but it's important for the ecology to have frogs in around the area. Now, across the way, we have a culvert that goes from just in front of my place into the marsh area, quite a large marsh area, and it's been dry last couple of years, and the frog population is virtually down to nothing. And I really miss listening to the frogs every night, and even looking at the fireflies and stuff like that. But you don't have frogs on the one end, it kind of changes the whole ecology of the whole area as well. And especially, I know we have a lot of kids, they're out there, they're trying to catch a frog, and that's one thing you can't do anymore because the frogs have virtually disappeared because of the low water levels. So I had mentioned earlier about the fish surveys, and there was a lot of big fish, and that's just, like I said, there's huge fish in this lake. And a buddy of mine, he got himself a really huge master angler pike, and I think it was way over 44 inches long, and he had it mounted or whatever. But there's a lot of big fish, and it's attracting a lot of different anglers from different areas when they start hearing that kind of stuff. That's a positive note. But we could get winter kill. We've been worried about winter kill the last couple of years because of the water levels being so low. And I have talked to a buddy of mine as well in one lake that he was fishing. The pike, which are great survivors, died, and virtually the whole lake full of fish died because of low water levels and low oxygenation and winter kill. And they tried to stock it with trout and all that, and that still didn't help very much. It's a very slow grind to try to get things back to where they need to be. I guess the big thing is that we need to be proactive and keeping a check on that. And the only thing we can do is making sure that we, the cottage owners, red flag these things and let Department of Fisheries and Oceans know about it. I know in the past that they were right here in Dauphin at the provincial building, but they are not here anymore. They were moved to Winnipeg. So the contact that I had here, he moved to Winnipeg, and that changed, it changes that. When you got a demographic change like that happening, it's like we're outside the perimeter and they don't really, care very much of what's happening unless we have a real issue. And then, of course, you get into the bureaucratic of trying to get something done, and then it kind of gets stonewalled. So it's just things that happen, and people like us, I guess, is where we need to be, and just keep a focus on keeping things in check and making sure that we preserve our lakes and our viability for our fish population and the people that live around the area. Rainbow Beach is considered, the provincial campground is rated #1 in the province. People can catch a master angler right off the public beach area. If you want to catch a fish, that's all affected by water levels as well. And it can all depend on what the algae levels are going on and if they have to shut down the beach. But it's got a lot of different services at Rainbow, and it's virtually packed. Every single year that I drive by there is a lot of people have got their campers there, and there's just everything. You got a place to play golf there. You can do tennis or badminton and this and that. So we're going to go to our next slide here, which is the invasive species that are happening. So you see a picture of a bullhead catfish. Now, the bullhead catfish contaminated Lake Dauphin after the 2011 flood due to overland flooding. So they came in here, and we also have bass. But the big problem with bullheads, they're not a good species to be amongst the other fish here in this lake. Surprisingly, every time if you catch a bullhead in this lake, it'll be a master angler. There are some really big bullheads in here, but there's notices put up in around the area that we're not supposed to keep any bullheads. If you catch a bullhead, get rid of it, put it in the garbage. Do not throw it back in the lake. They just do not want to contaminate the lake with bullheads. So, and like I said before, we've got a lot of master angler fish in here, and we want to keep all the healthy population of other fish to the positive. And the bass, I haven't caught a bass yet, but I do know a couple of anglers that I talked to did catch a bass, and they're some good sized ones. So that they're starting to grow in numbers here in this lake. The left shot there is a picture in front of my place. You'll see the huts that are at a far distance. I think that was one of the derbies that they had there, but even on a day like in the last couple of weeks or whatever through the winter, we have about 40 to 50 huts that are just on the other side of the cove or even in front of my place for ice fishing. Ice fishing, like I said, has been a big draw this year, a huge draw. After Mr. Stockatelny stopped doing the derby that was here every year, the indigenous population decided to take it on. So you can see there's a poster on the right-hand side there in 2019 in March, a ice fishing challenge, and they had put it on, and they were just in their baby step mode of trying to get things organized and all that, because it's not an easy thing to do. So I think they just did it the 1 year, and then they went to the Waterhen area as well. So but participants were huge on this lake, and it's kind of died down a little bit. So with regards to the derby on this lake, algae, like I mentioned there before, Rainbow Beach provincial, it's very popular. We've got a picnic area, lots of tourists. Blue-green algae. It's not. We had no swim orders that are happening. Algae in the waters is not a healthy thing for animals. A lot of people have dogs up and down the beach. They're going for a walk and things like that. And different times there'll be notices put up not to allow your dogs to drink the water when the algae levels get up. And it usually happens when we're getting high temperature days that are out there. and the water levels are down. If you get the water levels are up and you get a little bit of wave action on that, you're not going to get as much algae happening, and that's a lot better for the lake. Watershed inflow, lake issues, we got, of course, in some areas, there's farmers on each side, and they're all here to do their thing, and we're here to live on the same areas, but you'll get some nutrients coming into the lake, which is a healthy thing, but there's also some things that might not be healthy coming off the land from the watershed inflow. Erosion, silt has been a major thing since even World War II. The silt buildup, and in some areas you can be taking your boat, and if you want to you dive off your boat or wherever like that, and you get into some silt area. The silt can be as thick as about anywhere from 2 feet to 4 feet thick of silt. There's even some old World War II practice bombs that are still sitting in the silt and in the mud that are buried. With the silt, you're getting offshoot of changes of the marsh growth, and which is not exactly a healthy thing, because you wanted to keep your frontage and area nice and clean. You want to keep it nice and sandy and free of any type of silt and free of any type of marsh growth. So it's a constant battle for cottage owners to try to keep the area attractive. I also had, right in front of my place when I was here over 20 years ago, I had carp that would spawn, and you'd see them spawning, and you see all their little fins that are in the water there and whatever, and it was quite the sight to see that. But now that has changed over the years because of the silt that it came in. Marsh grew in. I, myself, and a couple of the cottage owners at this end, we paid a contractor to try to dig some of that all out and take it off to the side. And that helped for a couple of years to keep it nice and clean. And we had some nice clean sand that kind of washed up. And it looked really, really good, but it only lasted so long. Fire can be also a problem, especially during drought. I had, in fact, a little fire just happened last year. There was just a bit of a burn that I had, just a small burn, and all of a sudden it jumped over some rocks and it went on the other side, and the fire department had to come out. Of course, I had a permit and everything, but it didn't take long for about, I would say 200 meters maybe of area was had caught on fire on the marsh that was just on the other side of the rock pile. So and you try to be careful with things like that. And that was the first time in the 25 years that I was out here that actually happened. When you're getting different chaotic things happening during the year, water levels, flood levels. Flood levels was a major thing that changed the whole demographic area. And if you were going to try to sell your property or move or whatever like that, like a couple of people just two doors down from me, they ended up moving to, I think, Sifton Beach from where they are here right now. Because of what was happening, I guess, here. They just chose to move. My doctor and her husband and that, they had a cottage here that they had for sale for years, and it just wasn't selling. And so you weren't able to sell the property because people were a little paranoid about what happened in 2011. And then of course they see that with the water levels change so dramatically up and down. Some people, of course, built K-beams to protect their erosion on the property. They knew about the blue-green algae and the risk that was to pets and that. And so they kind of hummed and hawed about even buying property in around the area. And that's understandable. Everybody, if you don't know what's going on, and I was one of the first people to get my property raised after the 2011 flood, and it was a good move. And for the people that didn't raise their property, it's not going to be very attractive for the next person that's going to come along and want to buy your property, because they'll say, well, did you get your place raised? Are you going to be protected in a flood down the road? And of course, if you didn't get it done because you were hesitant, and that's your call, and that puts red flags to everybody else that are out there that want to buy your property. So when they saw my property going up and they got the landscape was all redone, landscaping and extra frontage that we had from Old Town Harbor, because he built a new road. So that was a bonus for everybody down Crescent Cove here, because the old Valhop road that we did have, we now owned. And we ended up getting extra frontage towards the approach to the new Valhop road by a gracious movement through Old Town Harbor and that. And so we had this extra land now, and it was a bonus to everybody all the way along. So like I say, selling property, and even with Old Town Harbor, with the haunted cottage development, that, like I said, it was slow to sell these new lots, but now it's starting to pick up. So that's a bonus there. And of course, people know that it was well constructed, the whole development, and so people are now buying these different lots and actually putting a house on it, or a cottage, and living there now year round. So we've got questions here. That's a picture of in front of my place, early morning sunrise. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I never get tired of watching sunrise. I'm sure everybody else in there that lives by a lake and you can see those kind of things happening enjoy the same things. And it's just one of those things that we get from God on a daily occurring basis that keeps me out here.
Okay, we got a lot of things going on there, Gary. That's a busy lake in many ways. Lots of development. Yes, it is. And lots of other issues occurring as well. So we're open to questions now, and have gotten a few questions in via chat, and we welcome more. What's the status of the Crescent Cove Cottage-Owners Association today, Gary? What's happening with the association?
Okay, well, we meet the weekend after Country Fest every year. We meet about 1 o'clock or so. All the cottage owners bring their picnic chairs, whatever, and they usually meet in my garage. I have a very large 26 by 36 garage, and it's great for people to get in and out of there, especially we're having a storm or rain or wind activities, and it's very well sheltered. So it's a great place for people just to pop down. We usually have a notice that goes out to everybody with anything that needs to be discussed for new business and any type of old business. It's usually sent out so that everybody has a really good knowledge of what's going to be happening at the meeting. We invite the RM of Lakeshore, and we'll invite other maybe chairs from other beaches there to come here as well if there's some interest that is going to focus on some relative issues that are going to be concerning us. One of them being like maybe speed bumps, for example, which was an issue that was done right across the board with the different, with Lakeshore Drive and also Beach Road and Valhop Drive. So that was just like one of the issues, but it gives a chance for everybody to voice their opinions, and also to keep in check all the different types of problems that are associated with being a cottage owner out here, and just to make it more comfortable for everybody to have a say, but also just to live comfortably as a cottage owner out here, and just to be have a friendliness with everybody else. I feel quite blessed, I guess, to live out here, and very nice people. It's not uncommon to have somebody coming in from another beach and stopping in. So I've been with this association almost like pretty well from day one for the last 20 odd years. I was a secretary for many years, and then I finally got voted in to be the chairperson for this. And we got a lot of stuff done over the years. There's no doubt about it. And it's because we work cohesively as a team, and just to allow everybody to have their point of view and opinion. And it doesn't matter who you are, if you're 80 years old or you're a child that's out here and you're wanting to catch a frog or anything like that, you have an opinion. So that's really helpful.
What kinds of projects has the association delved into, Gary?
Projects, and I think you asked me this earlier on there, and working alongside with the RM to try to get the boating entrance there, because it was getting full of silt. So contacted the RM and keeping a check on that. They, of course, ended up getting some grant money, and they were able to clean that all out. And there was a lot of bonuses with that, because I had a call from one of the RM counselors, and he said, well, we got a lot of the silt on that out of there. We'd like to get rid of it. And so they put it along the one side of the canal on Beach Road, but I needed some fill at my place here. So they had dumped a bunch of the silt on my property. So on a gratis basis there, and that made a big help for me to get my approach done. We've sat in on different types of meetings with the RM to keep in touch with what was happening with the Old Tarn Harbor, because that was a big area of concern of how that was going to affect the rest of Crescent Cove with this new developer coming in. And so we had a number of meetings around that. And of course, if we have to add extra RM people or extra speakers, or even add somebody from water stewardship or anything like that on an issue that we might have had. For example, if the marsh was starting to get bigger in this area, we were looking forward to getting some governmental help in one of their boat machines there that helps to cut the marsh underwater to capitalize on that. So we never did get that. We tried to push for that, but that didn't happen. Also things like dust control was another major area. Of course, if you're getting a developer that's down here, he's going to have lots of trucks going up and down the place. And then we had piles and piles of dust flying into the cottage owner area. So having proper dust control done every year, not only for us, but it was done along Beach Road, Valhop, and also Lakeview Drive at Ochre Beach. And it made a better way to keep the road in shape so it didn't fall apart, and keep the dust levels down so people can walk up and down with their families and dogs. So various things along the way. That's just like an example of a couple of different projects that we had.
Yeah, that's good, Gary. Has another question here, people wondering whether the MLA has been any assistance in solving some of the issues there in the lake.
Yes and no. I'm going to say no, because I was in contact with the MLA, especially with regards to the water levels and some of the other issues. And when we had the flood of 2011, of course, we met as a group at the community hall in Ochre. And, it always seemed to be that things kind of got tied up bureaucratically in places, and you try to get things done or address an issue that was very, very important to us and the community and to the lake future. And it was always, I remember the 2011 flood, doing a presentation at the senior center, and I had a full house. My wife and I did a presentation there, because I did a presentation with full slides and DVD of from Dauphin Flight Services. We did a bunch of video recording and air shots and everything like that. And then I met with some guys from Water Stewardship, and these guys are like engineers, whatever, from then top-notch guys, but they were young. Not to say, you know, but I would say they were picking my brain on getting as much information from me to give to them with regards to the 2011 flood. And it's quite interesting that, you know, things change over the years and you'll have different people in the system. And I remember there was an older fella out of Winnipeg, and I don't know if any of you know him or not, but he was one of the best forecasters of the flood for the Red River Valley and all that kind of area. He had it pretty well dialed in right in. He knew exactly, you know, what levels were going to happen and what levels were going to be peaking and all that. But and then now you've got all these younger guys in there, and they just don't have the same experience as this older guy did, and that makes a big difference. But yeah, being in contact with the MLA, I was in contact with an MLA a couple of times there, gave him a lot of information, but we didn't really get much movement. So that's your answer.
Are phosphorus levels increasing in the lake water?
You're talking about chemical phosphorus?
Fertilizer or nutrient foster. Nutrient phosphorus.
Yeah. It's we did have some water samples taken, you know, at different points, because you'd get different things that people would see on the lake, and especially on the shoreline. You would see detergent, almost like a detergent type of foam that would happen, or you'd see dead fish on the beach. So then we're saying, well, there's got to be some stuff going into the lake here. So a couple of the cottage owners took water samples, and we took them down to the provincial building, and we really didn't get anything back, you know. So it's kind of held up in the system, and so we didn't get accurate readings to what was really going on, but you could definitely see there was some changes happening on the shore.
Yeah. When did the bass arrive, and where do you think they came from?
The bass probably came up from the north part of the lake and came across overland. And of course, they're still trying to build some water, you know, some dams and overlay out to that area. And the natives, I think, are talking about getting some better protection for where they're living. But that came in from the north area of the lake across overland from wherever. I don't know which lake or which river, and that would be hard to say. But you know, it was a surprise issue to not only myself, but to some of the anglers. And until I actually saw a bass coming out of this lake, I would have said, where did it come from?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Has the lake ever had a widespread winter kill?
No, it's never had. It has come close to it. It has come close to it in the last 20 years, maybe a couple of times. But no, and like this year, it really kind of surprised me, because when I was talking to Mr. Stoccatelli there the other year, and a lot of the fishermen in there on the area that were fishing this lake, they said, we got to be watching this lake really careful, because it, you know, if the water levels are going to get so low, and this is a shallow lake to begin with, we could suffer a massive winter kill. And so that's where we need to be proactive and vigilant.
Are you able to take measures to mitigate against the invasion of zebra mussels, Gary?
That is on our radar, but there's nothing. We haven't set up zebra watching stations here or anything like that. But the chance of that happening could happen overnight, and we really need to be vigilant and, again, proactive, and push the government to start thinking, well, you know, this has got to be watched very carefully, because this lake is very prolific right now. It's producing a lot of master angler fish, and we could have that disappear overnight.
How many cottage owners, how many property owners are there around the lake, Gary?
How many properties?
How many property owners around the lake?
Well, there's quite a few. There's about 40 to 44 on Crescent Cove alone. Is going to be, we're starting in on Old Town Harbor there, and there's supposed to be another 100 cottages there. Ochre Beach area, they've probably got about 50 cottage owners there. Not all of them are full-time year-round. Laguna Beach, there's quite a few there as well, and there's Dauphin Beach, which is the oldest beach. And then of course you got the provincial parks there at Rainbow, which will look after all the campers.
Yeah, that's a lot of people. Is there further development?
Yeah, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. We got a big area, and like I said, Old Town Harbor, they've got some plans in the future to put a hotel down here and a little corner store. And that may be happening. And they're also thinking about working in partnership with the RM to get a line for the septic, so that people don't have to have septic tanks out here anymore. So that may be happening, but it's going to be a cost to each of the cottage owners, no doubt.
Mm-hmm. Have there been projects done by other organizations other than your association to address the algae issue?
No, nobody else that I know of. Nobody else that I know of. And that's, I can just keep that in a nutshell, but it'll spark up every so often. And of course, you'll get things happening. There'll be a flurry of activity, and there'll be stuff on the radio, and there'll be stuff happening on the Dauphin Herald and whatever else like that, or even on Winnipeg CTV. And it's mentioned, and then nothing really happens over that, other than everybody needs to be alerted and the warnings go out. And that's about all that we can happen. We're at the mercy of Mother Nature, of the heat, and the amount of water activity, water levels that come up and down.
That's great. That's about the extent of our questions, Gary. You've done a great job of that, and a good job of the presentation. Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate all your help there, Dennis, in getting this PowerPoint presentation together. I'm sort of the new guy in the block with this, and I'm the interloper. So I hope I did good here with doing a good presentation the best I can.
Thank you very much, Gary, for a very informative presentation on Dauphin Lake. So good evening, everyone, and thank you once again for joining us. And all the best to you and your families. And we hope you'll join us next week.